Hi everyone, welcome to our very first webinar, Preparing Early Career Researchers for Jobs in Academia, organized by the Planned Postdoc Slack and sponsored by ASPU Ambassador Seed Grant. I'm Arif Ashraf. I'll be the moderator for this webinar, and I'm a postdoc at Facet Lab in the biology department in the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and I'm also the co-founder of Planned Postdoc Slack. So first, I would like to explain about the structure of today's webinar, and after that, I will let Sunil to introduce our Planned Postdoc Slack. So it's a 60 minutes long webinar, and the first couple of minutes, I will just talk about how we are going to organize this webinar. And after that, Sunil will actually talk about the Planned Postdoc Slack. And then I will introduce our four amazing speakers today, and they will spend 6 minutes each, mostly highlighting their personal experience of navigating the academic job. Well, you are going to be in the listener seat as a participant in the first half, but the later half is actually designed for the interaction with the speakers, and it's open for your questions, comment, and any inquiries regarding academic job market. I'm sure our speakers are happy to take your questions and share their experiences. And throughout the webinar, including the first half, we would like you to post your questions in the Q&A box. And from there, actually, we'll choose your question and present your question to our panelists. And whenever we're going to present your question, we'll mention your name and we'll unmute you. So in that case, you can interact with the speakers for any further inquiries if you prefer. And the reason is because due to the number of participants, we have to maintain this question and answer policy. But we really want you guys to actively participate. So we have an announcement. And that is the American Society of Plant Biologists Ambassador Program, which both Sunil and I are part of, has sponsored 4 active participation hours as part of its Ambassador Seed Grant. And based on your questions and active participation in the discussion, our panelists will pick like 4 participants for the $25 Amazon gift card award. And just for a clarification, that not only the questions that are discussed, but all the questions submitted to the Q&A will be screened for this award. And with this, I'm actually going to pass it to Sunil to introduce our Planned Postdoc Slack. And once again, I welcome you all to our very first webinar. Let's have some fun.
Cool. Thanks, Arif. My name is Sunil Kanchanmane Raju. I'm, like Arif mentioned, I'm a co-founder of the Plant Postdoc Slack. I'm currently a postdoc in Department of Plant Biology, Michigan State University, studying stress adaptation in plants through comparative epigenomics. First off, I want to clarify if there was any confusion because how we named this group as well as the webinar. Plant Postdoc Slack is a group for current postdocs working in plant-related fields to help share, discuss, and plan for their next career move in academia, industry, and the government. And particularly, this webinar will focus on tenure-track positions in research-intensive universities in United States, but we will expand in the future. Next month, there will be a webinar on jobs in industry, and our future webinars will discuss more about jobs outside North America as well. Coming back to Plant Postdoc Slack, Arif and I started this since we know as postdocs, we are all in the same process of preparing to land a more independent position, be it in academia or industry. So we thought together as a community, we can peer review our application material, provide advice, share information about opportunities, and benefit everyone in the process. So this was our motivation behind the initiative. So our goal is to provide as much resource as possible through the Plant Postdoc Slack to help people prepare better application packages. So here I'll just list a few of them that you can see on your screen now. So we have a Slack group to chat about application preparations, interview process, and all matters relating to being a postdoc. And in the Slack channel, we provide links to various sources of information for preparing your research, teaching, or diversity statements. For example, we usually have posts where we link to Jeff Ross Ibarra lab webpage, which has tons of information about how to prepare your research, teaching, and diversity statements. We also frequently link to future PI Slack. Our Slack group is based on that group, which is mainly for biomedical postdocs. So we link to their resources as well, and they have 1,800 participants who regularly discuss about these things. So they have a ton of information as well. And the other thing is we have a plant postdoc Slack on Twitter, which is a good source of information for job ads and other information. But I think one of the most important information or the useful information is Arif and I, we started this editable Google spreadsheet with current jobs and status. For example, if anyone in the group comes across a job in their institution, they can post it here in this editable spreadsheet, along with information like if the candidate shortlisting is completed or if the interviews are going on, if the candidate is selected. So you can keep editing it so others can use this and get to know what is going on with the search they either applied to or they wanted to apply to. So this is some of the information we have in the Plant Postdoc Slack group. So if you want to join this, please visit plantpostdocs.com. And also I wanted to mention, this is a very new initiative that we thought will benefit the plant community. And we are very keen to hear your thoughts on this. And if you have any suggestions for improvement, please reach out to me or Arif, and we'll be very happy to address if there is any concerns, but we are looking forward to your suggestions. Once again, I thank you for your interest in this webinar, and now I will let Arif take over.
Thanks, Sunil. That was a good introduction. I think you covered everything. With this, actually, I mentioned that we'll start with each speaker, and each speaker will talk for 6 minutes. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, which is Moises Exposito Alonso, and he started his position in Carnegie staff as a Carnegie staff associate in Carnegie Institution for Science, Department of Plant Biology, and he's also acting as an assistant professor of biology by courtesy in the Department of Biology in Stanford University. So with this, I'd like to invite Moi for his session.
Right. Yeah, thanks for the introduction, and thanks Sunil and Arif for organizing this and organizing generally this community. I wish I had known about this when I was doing my job search because I was quite lost. So it's quite flattering that you think I have something to comment on now. And it's also great to be together with Magdalena, Sam, and Satya on this. I think I hope that we get your brains running in some things and some ideas to improve your applications. So I don't have like a specific set of slides, but I'm gonna go through different points that Sunil and Arif already told us are common, frequently asked questions. And I've sorted them more or less in the order that we expect to be thinking of during the job application process and interview and so on. So I'm gonna enumerate them and then I'll go through them. And if you think I'm talking too much, also feel free to cut me halfway of the questions. So the first is how to present research and your experience attractively. I'm kind of summarizing them. The second is, does impact factor matter for success in job applications? The third is, what do search committees want to hear from candidates? The fourth, how to prepare a chalk talk. And the fifth, how do you distinguish yourself in the interview process? These are pretty big questions, I have to say, and we could spend like a week on them, but I'll add some details to each of them, and hopefully the others can also develop. So first of all, how to present your research and experience attractively. This is something that is surprisingly difficult, right? To go back and try to develop a narrative on why you're spending your whole life in doing research and doing a PhD and a postdoc and so on. And something that I think might help people listening is a blog post from Lucy Bland, B-L-A-N-D, who is a scientific writer. And the blog post is called Personal Branding for Academics Demystified. And I wish I had read that before my job applications. And essentially is how to prepare a sentence that essentially summarizes your skills, experience, who are you, and why you're doing stuff. And that's essentially you have to have ready whenever somebody asks you, so what do you do? And so the way that she discussed this essential personal branding sentence is with a sentence where there are some blanks that you have to fill in. So I'm gonna read the sentence is, I am blank, who does blank to blank. So the first blank is who are you? The second blank is what do you do? And the third blank is why are you doing that? So I'm gonna exemplify this by something that I could say in a job interview or in my job application. So I would say something like, I am a researcher, or now I'm an assistant professor who does evolutionary genetics methods and to understand adaptation of species to climate and ultimately rescue them from extinction or preserve them, right? So there I address who I am, what I do, and why I do that. And you could also think, I'm making this up, but it could be, I am a postdoc who does molecular biology and genetic engineering using CRISPR to understand cell differentiation in plant phloem and ultimately plant hydraulics, which could be an attractive agricultural trait, for example. So I think that's something that we academics don't think so much about, this academic branding, but that it can help a lot when you're writing your applications. Normally we're too purist and we just think of the details and so on. We don't put our job and research in a bigger picture. So that's an element that we can think for the first question. The second question was, does impact factor matter for success of job applications? I want to think that it does not. You know, obviously, well, I'm not sure if anybody has done studies on this, but I think having papers in tabloid journals correlates with having papers in also strong society journals. So my feeling is that if somebody's applying and has a very well-written paper, innovative, and with a solid experiment, solid figures and analysis in strong society journals, that's what I want to bring to the department if I were in a search committee. And then a few collaborative papers to also show that you're going to interact with members in the department. I think that is a key in terms of CV. So I wouldn't worry too much about the impact factor, but perhaps others have different opinions. The third is, what do search committees want to hear from candidates? The answer is, I wish I knew. And I think perhaps the best people to ask is actually the search committees members and chairs of search committees, people with more experience. I think this is very related on how to orient or how much to tailor your application, right? Your statement and cover letter to the job application. And I think, so in my case, I didn't really tailor the science so much to the job application, but I did mention in the cover letter, I think that's important, mention in the cover letter the different points and topics that are in the summary of the job call and to relate to the department. Like, I'm excited. Why are you excited to be in this department? I'm excited to collaborate with this section of the department that has expertise in this and I don't, and it could be great, all those kind of things. And I think the search committees want to read something that is very nicely written and that is exciting, right? After they've been going through hundreds of pages, that is exciting, but at the same time feasible. And that is kind of a very difficult balance to get when you haven't done this before. So my advice on getting a feasible and exciting application is to talk with many people, to ask many friends to read your application and as many faculty that you know that are your friends as you can. So that's the third. The fourth, I think, is really important, how to prepare a chalk talk. I think that's one of the most difficult parts of a job application or job interview, because we rarely give chalk talks anymore in academia. We give slides in conferences, but it's really, really different. It's more like when you have to go in high school up in the board and discuss a topic. So my advice for chalk talks: rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. There's so much going on, so much that can go down in a chalk talk that you don't want to improvise as much. So there's going to be enough improvisation. So don't worry about that. Rehearse a lot. I wrote essentially in 2 American letters or A4 format pages, essentially as if I were writing in a board, in an actual blackboard, exactly what I was gonna write and the drawings that I was gonna make. And I knew them essentially by heart. And just 2 pages max, 1 to describe aim 1, 1 to describe aim 2. You're only going to raise the board 1 time during the chalk talk, otherwise it gets quite messy. And reserve 1/3 in the left of your board to keep an index all the time. So that index contains the title of your chalk talk, the title of aim 2 and potentially sub aims, and the title of, aim 1 and title of aim 2. Aim 1 should be something, you should pick something that is built on the momentum that you've created during your PhD and postdoc. It is less risky, it is strong, it's good, it can be published, and it can be funded. And you have to explicitly discuss funding opportunities. And aim 2, you can choose something or expect something more risky, more innovative, more creative, perhaps a little bit outside your area of expertise, and potentially something that you could do in collaboration with the department, or that the experience of the department could enrich this more risky aim 2. And describe them again as feasible and exciting as possible at the same time, and reference how cool the department is to do these 2 aims. And in specific areas, if it's something difficult, you can mention the expertise of different faculty members of the department. So that's my advice for chalk talk. In 5, how did you distinguish yourself in an interview? I don't know if I distinguished myself in an interview, but I can give you a couple of points. One of them, yes, I'm gonna wrap up. So I think the most important is having a great talk. That's the most important, and what distinguishes you. I would, during the interview, I would search every faculty member. You need to know them. You need to recognize them with pictures. It's very weird to meet with somebody that has discovered, the first oncogene and you didn't know, and have a couple of papers from that lab in your mind, and a couple of good questions in case the chat doesn't go so smoothly. So I think that's important, because ultimately faculty want to bring people that they like and they want to interact with for the next decades, right? So that those personal interactions and being curious, involved, being collaborative, or at least giving that idea, it will be important. And have the obvious list of questions, like what it's going to be, your mentorship, funding, why the department, future plans, all of those things kind of in your head, because they're going to ask you those things like 30 times during your interview. So yeah, that's all from my side. If you have more questions, I'm happy to chat more.
Thanks, Moi. That was great. Actually, I was listening very carefully. Those are great advice. So with this, we are going to move to our next speaker, which is, just give me a second, which is Magdalena Julkowska. She is going to join as an assistant professor in the Boyce Thompson Institute, hopefully very soon. So we're going to listen from her.
Yes, I'm currently stuck in Saudi Arabia where I was doing my postdoc. Well, actually, I'm still doing my postdoc, so I'm one of you guys. I'm really enjoyed listening to Moises' points, and he was very organized. I'm less organized, so I'm sorry for that. And I think actually I'm going to start from back, how to distinguish myself. Because I started fantasizing about becoming a assistant faculty way ahead of time before I was actually ready to submit a proper application. And I had a friend that was a couple of years senior to me, and seeing her going through the process and writing like applications for the same position as her, although I had absolutely no chance of getting even an interview at that point, was, I think, a very useful exercise for me. And because I applied to a couple of universities like 3 years before the final round for my faculty interviews. And I realized, you know, you spend a full day of writing your first draft of research statement, and it really takes and it's not even close to being done. And same can be said for like teaching statement, diversity statement. Me being European, I had absolutely no clue what those diversity statements were about. But that kind of gave me more and more time to kind of think about, to give them to people to read, to faculty that was just invited to KAUST as to come faculty, and for them to give me some of the points on my documents. And that was very, very useful. And also in the second year, I realized that I was also applying to multiple universities, no news except for one. And I only heard, I only heard from one university, but I realized that my research statement, I was like morphing myself and my research too much into the departments that they were. So they were asking for, I don't know, someone who was working on native plants. I'm a fundamental plant biologist. I can make my brain like think that, oh yeah, this is how that would fit. But I was kind of bending over backwards to fit myself to that specific department. And that takes quite a lot of time as well, because you need to do all of your research about all of the faculty that is in that department. And yeah, so that's, and I also realized, looking from the very first year applying, that my publications that I had, they are not always reflecting what I'm really enjoying and what I'm good at. I think I'm pretty good in doing data analysis in R, but I never had anything in my publications that showed for that. And then together with a couple of students, we were like, oh, how about we make an R application? And that's how we made the MV app that you can read more on my Twitter or whatever. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but that kind of gave me an idea like how to build my CV, not necessarily just papers, but what kind of papers, what kind of sub projects can I invest my time to kind of distinguish myself and build my brand. It's kind of weird, but it is how it goes. And then that kind of links to impact factors, having high impact factors papers. Like I don't really have any super high impact factors papers. I think it's most important that you have papers, that you can show that you finish the projects, that you're productive, that you're first author on a couple of the papers. They not necessarily have to be high impact, but I think it's more important to do work on Twitter, to kind of tweet about what are you publishing, what is your paper about, but also tweet about other people's papers to kind of show you're involved, you're reading, you know what you're doing. Then in terms of, so how to present your research, I think it's really nice. Well, I had the luck in my career throughout my PhD, postdoc. I was left with a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted. So I could kind of form all of my research experiences into a cohesive narrative. And I think that's a very lucky situation, and not everyone has that luck. So sometimes you do a PhD on epigenetics, and then you move for your postdocs into, I don't know, phytobiology, and doing biotic interactions and things like that. But I think if you, from your perspective, can breed all of those experience into a cohesive narrative that are then coming into like the high point of that during your years as an assistant professor, I think that's going to be pretty convincing, because you show in committee like, wow, you're able to kind of glue all of those experiences into one storyline, and that's what makes you unique as a scientist and very attractive. So yeah, so at the latest phase of my research statements, I applied not to too many jobs. I applied mainly for the jobs that were fairly fitting into my profile. So I wasn't applying for evolutionary biologist, but more like, developmental plant root biologist. That's what I am. But I was, and I didn't really change too much in my background, in what I wanted to do. The thing that changed is I had always a portion of my research statement where it was like, okay, where do I see cohesion with the department and possible collaborations? And it was like 1/3 of a page. And I think that helped the search committee to kind of like, okay, so this is a person, she's not really, we don't really know how she's going to fit. Oh, look, she figured it out for us. And I think with that, I'm on 6 minutes.
Very good. Yeah, it was great actually. So thanks, Magdalena. With this, we're going to move to our third speaker, which is Sam Leiboff. And Sam is also going to join us as an assistant professor in the Department of Botany and Plant Pathology in the Oregon State University. So Sam, you can start.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Sam, and I just moved to Corvallis, actually, to begin to start my empty, closed lab here at Oregon State University. I'm a developmental biologist, and I study the way that grass, leaves, and flowers are formed. And let's see, I wanted to give a little bit of advice, and let's see. So I have a few slides, but it's nothing important, so I won't share screen. I wanted to stress a few things that I found really surprising as I was actually looking at the job market. I spent a really long time sort of figuring out what I actually thought was an ideal job. And I think that maybe that's a good place to start before working on applications and all this other stuff. Sort of identify what an ideal job even looks like to you so that you'll be ready to take it. And so things that I found were helpful to think about were just looking at what I do as a postdoc and what I love about that. Like research-wise, like what types of research is exciting? Like what do I want to continue to do? And what do I actually want to avoid? Like I figure I'll never be a biochemist. All my Western blots are terrible. I don't want to do that. I probably shouldn't apply to any positions that are extremely biochemistry heavy. I'll feel more comfortable on ones that are developmental biology focused. For teaching, sort of thinking about the demographics that you'll be teaching to, and if you have any priorities there. For example, sort of looking at different demographics of schools, I figured that I'm actually really in love with the idea of the communities that a state school can support, and that was very important to me in the places that I applied to. In outreach and communication, sort of similarly identifying your favorite audience or ideal stakeholders and looking for potential to contribute to those places that I think will make your job experience more pleasurable. And if you're looking for a mix of different research, teaching, and outreach, think about what that ideal ratio would be and see if you can find a position that is more aligned with what you want. For example, if you would like to be doing research almost all the time and doing none of the other things, then really you shouldn't apply to a small liberal arts college where teaching is the major thing that you'll be doing. You might also want to think about what other things about your job will make you happy. For example, do you have to consider a partner's career? And if so, it would probably be good to sit down and really ask what they need in terms of location, of characteristics, of accommodation from your position. There's a big difference between large institutes and small institutes. If you've only been in one kind, I really suggest you sort of think critically about the opportunities that another can offer. For example, if you go to a university that doesn't have a large sequencing facility, but you do a lot of sequence-based work, it will make it very challenging to continue to do what you already love to do. And for me, especially, so I'm an LGBT, I guess, minority in the United States. Sort of thinking about the climate of the region of the Institute was very important, especially in conversations with my partner. And so those sorts of things really sort of were able to help me focus in on sort of the ideal job, and allowed me to sort of winnow out a lot of opportunities that otherwise might distract me from my dream job. Another thing that I found was pretty scary, difficult at first, was finding job announcements. I'm really glad that the Plant Postdoc Slack is putting a lot of effort into organizing their own job board. I think that that's really useful. You might also find some good leads on ecoevojobs.net. So that's similar Google spreadsheet of job opportunities that's maintained by ecology, evolution, and biology folks. You can find a wide variety of biology jobs there. That was pretty useful for me. Especially they have a section for venting and rumors, and that was always nice to blow off a little steam during the job search process. A more polished professional job search could be found at higheredjobs.com. So most major institutes will also cross-list their job postings at a bunch of different professional headhunting sites, and that's one of them. But I actually found my my position through Twitter. And so that's a little bit harder to quantify and give direct advice for. But I guess the best thing I can say is try to follow folks that you really respect and whose career you'd like to sort of mirror or follow. And those folks will probably retweet opportunities that will be things that you'd like to apply to. And you can follow me if you want to, Plants Over Pants. I retweet a few different opportunities as I see them. And then when you do find an announcement, make sure to read it very closely. And you can really quickly sort of see what's going on a little bit under the scenes, behind the scenes for a job posting. You can see if it's highly political, if the department is not sure what they want, it will be kind of a very broad or conflicting job posting. But if they really, really want one particular thing, they will be very, very clear about it. And so I guess I'll say it, that it's really easy for a committee to support a good match, I think. And so when hopefully you see the opportunity and you're like, oh, I'm a great match, your application will just do very well because of that. I think also mirroring what Magdalena said, I would strongly advise everyone to apply to jobs that you want. They take a very long time to apply to, even if you have your materials ready. Cover letters will keep you up at night. The whole application will keep you up at night. So I think that there's some advice out there that treats job applications like a statistical game, that if you apply enough, eventually you'll get some opportunities. But I think you'll really use a lot of your energy and time on just filling out applications and answering emails and being stressed out by phone calls and, like just waiting all the time. I would not advise that in general. I would hope that unless you're able to use applications through a system like Interfolio, some disciplines will have a centralized database and they'll just send out their applications like by clicking a button or whatever. Unless you're in one of those disciplines, I would advise you to think very carefully about curating your applications very closely. And as Moi was saying, I think it is very important to sort of centralize the message that you're sending through all your different documents and really say, I am Dr. X and I'm an expert at Y and you need me because I'm going to keep doing great things. For example, 1, 2, and 3, A, B, and C. And each one of your documents should sort of support that same narrative. Starting with the cover letter, I can't emphasize enough how important the cover letter will be when your posting might receive 100, perhaps 200 applications, that the cover letter should really be a nice little overview of who you are, what you'll do, almost like an abstract to the rest of your documents. And then also a lot of folks have expressed difficulty with diversity statements online even. I think that it is a tricky thing that we haven't quite figured out as a community, what a diversity statement is necessary for, what it should say. But I do know that some places view it very, very highly. So for example, most UC schools, they will look at the diversity statement first. And we know out folks who are not serious based on their diversity statement. So it is unfortunately very important to keep all your documents at a very high level of polish, even ones that you feel uncomfortable with. Let's see, I think I'll just try to wrap up here by talking about the interview. I think that I can't emphasize enough how stressful and grueling an interview is, that you should do your best to try to prepare beforehand, because you'll really just completely be maxed out by meeting people and talking with people and saying the same things over and over and over again. And so a nice thing to do will be to know your schedule, to know if your seminar comes first, if your chalk talk comes first, if your meeting with the dean comes first, just so that you're not surprised, and so that you can sort of gauge whether some people will have heard your spiel, your statement, I am X and I do Y, once or twice already, or if you should be prepared to immediately dive in and explain who you are from the beginning. I think during your interview, you'll find that folks will offer coffee, tea, walks often. And I think you should take those. Don't be shy. It's very, very grueling, and take every opportunity you can to get some sunshine, some fresh air, whatever you need. And make sure to snack. I know it sounds really stupid, but you'll probably have meetings during your lunch, perhaps with the students, which are also evaluating you, so don't forget about that part. And so you might not be able to eat anything except for snacks. So keep that in mind. It can be physically taxing as well as sort of mentally grueling to do the interview. And we haven't talked much about negotiation, so I'll just quickly say one thing, really to think about the things that are absolutely necessary for you, equipment-wise and sort of otherwise. If you need a particular salary or if you need a spousal arrangement, that is a must-have, and recognize other things that you're more flexible with. So of course, we'd all like all the money to do everything and hire everyone, but there are limitations to what you can ask for and what you can demand. And just be very realistic about those, like, think about maybe top 3 things, top 5 things, most important things to negotiate, and make sure that you have access to those equipment, that you have sort of written statement that you'll be reimbursed for whatever it is that you need to do, or that the department will very strongly commit to supporting your spouse, or whatever it is that you need. I look forward to your questions. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sam. It was really nice. So with this, I think we are running out of time, but it's okay. So we are going to move to our next speaker, which is Swathi Nadakuduti. And she started her position as an assistant professor in the Institution of Food and Agriculture Science, University of Florida, very recently. So we are going to hear from Swathi.
And thank you. It's great to first of all hear from other, assistant professors how they navigate, doing great advice. I agree to every single point. You will actually face them as you navigate, through this process. But since you're running short, I'll take short time. And I think I want to focus on the timeline from when you start thinking of, as a postdoc, you want to apply and when you will end up with a job, at least in my experience, in my case. So after 3 years of postdocing is when I thought, oh, well, I think I should apply, start looking and applying for jobs. And I want to be, and this was in mid 2017. So I thought, okay, I want to be ready to apply for jobs in 2018. And so the first thing is, obviously research publications are critical, that they want to see a periodic publication. So I kind of focused on writing the rest of the year, research publications. And also I don't know if this is common or important at this time, but I also involved myself in a grant proposal writing. So it was ambitious beginning where I kind of involved in grant writing for a federal grant for USDA. It was not funded that year, but then I started wondering, oh my God, did I waste all this time? Instead, I could have written some manuscripts or spent time, but it was a good learning experience for me, I thought. So first of all, I talked to my postdoc advisor and told him, hey, I'm interested to apply for jobs. You need his support throughout. But every postdoc, I think, you must be prepared that you slow down your research at some point when you start applying for jobs and doing all this interviewing and everything. So your postdoc advisor must definitely support you through this. So I kind of talked to my postdoc advisor, and then I attended some conferences as key, like a invited speaker, and I kind of interacted with other faculty, kind of telling them that I'm be looking for jobs this year and so on. And I also involved again in writing small grants, like institutional internal grants in the beginning of the year, and try to push out publications. And and once I got an award for that, I felt a little bit more confident, like in the process. And once your publications get accepted, you get a little, because I was so hesitant if I was ready, not sure. So it was helpful to get some encouragement. And then mid 2018 is when I kind of again resubmitted, a grant proposal, federal grant proposal, and then focus more on preparing my application packet. And as everybody mentioned, it's very kind of intense process. I took several weeks, not 1 day or 2 days, to work on my research statement, teaching statement. And I think for me, I didn't have a very high impact publications in plant research. I had some decent ones, but not very high impact. So I wasn't sure at the time, but I thought a well-rounded application showing some, kind of grant writing experience. And I was also into teaching a little bit. I was genuinely interested in a bit of teaching. So I did some guest lectures, and then I was a co-instructor for a course, which I could put in teaching statement as experience. And then, publications, grant writing, and then teaching and diversity statement. I didn't even know that existed until I started applying, and that was new also. But then first thing I did was I kind of subscribed to online jobs, academic jobs online, Indeed, Hired, and different job boards that helped me a lot. And eventually, I think I started using Indeed a lot more than others. And I prepared an Excel sheet where I had what position, what university, what job specific requirements, and the deadline. And then I gave a heads up to my mentors and advisors from whom I wanted recommendation letters from, just to give them enough time to prepare. And then I also shared my application packet with them so that they know kind of my background and what I'm, so that they can have the recommendation letter well suited to support your application. So yeah, and as I started applying for jobs, my stars aligned that we got the grant awarded. So I think that helped me also to kind of distinguish myself a little bit. And then, that was already 1 year from the time I started thinking about a job to started applying. And then as I applied, you kind of do this phone interview, Zoom interview, and for that you prepare so much, like knowing the institution, faculty, what faculty are doing, what are the infrastructure facilities they have, potential collaborators, and you prepare for each of them, which is very time consuming. And so I also didn't apply for too many jobs. I mean, and I got advice that as many as you apply, you have better chance, but I couldn't do it. It was too time consuming. To even write a cover letter to apply in the beginning was too time consuming. I think I did like 13 applications or so, which is already a lot of time. And then, Zoom interviews, phone interviews, and then on-site interviews, which is again a lot of traveling and time. And, at that time you should be prepared that your research will slow down a little bit during all this process. And so, yeah, and then you kind of end up with an offer like a year from. So that took me like 2 years from the time I thought, okay, I'm kind of wanting to apply to versus when I ended up with an offer. So it's like that's the timeline it took for me. So yeah, and everything else, great advice from other speakers as well. So I'll stop here, and I think we could start the Q&A session, which would be more useful for
Thank you, Swathi. That was great. Actually, don't have exactly half an hour, but we'll just start going through the Q&A section. And as you already mentioned that, because we have a lot of participants, we cannot go through all of the questions. So here are some of the questions which I started to get in the Q&A. And I will start with a very good one, like, because what actually happened as a postdoc, we work on something what my PI is working, right? Like, and when we write about in our job application, people will say, oh, someone else is doing, your boss is doing that. So there is something like that. So every time we think that, okay, I have to develop a independent research project that will not conflict with my current PI. So actually that is the question. And I really like that question. So the question is from Srindi Holalu from Berkeley. And it is the basic question is that how to develop and when to develop my own project that will not go with the conflict with my current PI, like an independent project development.
I think, clearly you have to talk to your postdoc advisor well in advance, what you can really take with you, and start working towards having an independent, research program of your own. That's kind of what is helpful. You definitely have to show you're distinct from what from who you've been working with, which is very important in your job application, is what I think.
Sure. So can I come in?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Hi, this is Srinidhi from UC Berkeley and postdoc with Ben Blackman's lab in PMB. Yeah, this was my question about like how to find an project which is little different from your PA's project. So yeah. The other project, like one of my concern is that I may not be able to get some additional funding which I can pursue because whatever the funding are as it has been already allocated by the grant. So I was wondering on this, like what other extra sources of funding that I can get if anybody is aware of this.
Right. I think that this is a pretty tricky topic, and I think that it takes a long time to sort of figure out and negotiate exactly how to work on something that's slightly different than your advisor, and sort of develop new projects while you're still completing work, I guess, for that other person. One thing that I was able to do that helped me focus was I was a little bit worried that my search last year was not going to succeed, and that I would need more support for what I do. And so I worked with my advisor to write a grant. She came up with 2 aims and I came up with 1, and sort of doing that with her helped me sort of realize, like, okay, so she's really good at doing this and that, and I'm really good at doing this completely other thing that she really is not that interested in it. And we sort of discussed this as like, oh, okay, like this would be a way to float me for a while to support me. And that if there was money left in the grant, and I found a position, that I would take that aim and the sort of money that was remaining and move with it. And I think that was also sort of attractive. Well, so it ended up getting funded. And that was also attractive to the committee because I had recently written something that was competitively fundable from National Science Foundation. So I think that that might be something that you could consider or sort of think about moving towards. I mean, as postdocs, you shouldn't be sort of abused and expected to write all the grants in the lab, but sort of thinking about contributing an aim that's unique to a project that makes sense in the lab might be a good way of figuring out exactly what you are good at and different at and what you can take.
Cool. So we have 7 minutes left. We'll move to the next question. So the next question is some concern like that. Okay, the department, as a postdoc, we are not getting like forever time to develop all sort of skills, right? Like someone of us is good at data analysis, someone is good at microscopy or the molecular biology. So there is a question asking by Pratik Pandesha from India. So he's asking like what sort of expertise the search committee or department expects from the applicants, like, right? So I think the confusion is that if I'm good at data analysis and I look at that department and they have so many good people, like the good leader on the data analysis, whether they still need me, should I apply, something like that. So the question comes like that. What sort of expertise they're going to expect from a young postdoc who is searching for the job?
I think for the PI, it's not anymore about your skills, because you're going to hire postdoc as students. So if there are already excellent people for microscopy in that department and you're planning to do microscopy but are not microscopist yourself, fantastic. You're going to have a student that you can send to that other lab next door. They can learn everything what they need to know, and they're going to come back and enrich your project. I think the skill that is really crucial for the PI is to be able to connect the dots and kind of fuse the different ideas into the projects and kind of into the landscape of your department of what projects are really going to, you know, hit the ground running in that environment. It's kind of avoiding the question, really.
Yeah. I agree with Magdalena. I think you cannot have all the skills of a department, like being a bioinformatician, but at the same time being in the lab. It's all right that you don't have all of that, and there's going to be people in your lab that has those skills. I think, and this is similar to the previous question. I think the most important is that you're able to think of some interesting topic and think of it creatively. And you're gonna provide some skills, and you have to tell the department how that topic fits in the department and how your skills will fit in the department and how you can use the skills of the department to enrich your science. So just think creatively. It's a great time to read a lot and to think about exciting science that you would like to do in the next 10 years. And you really don't need funding or like to have 5 papers on an area that you want to work in the future. Like I proposed some molecular biology projects even without having a molecular biology background, and that was totally fine. So yeah, I think work in your writing, in your application, some exciting topic, some of your skills can be applied to that, and some that you're going to bring in the future.
Okay, excellent. We have 4 minutes left from our tentative ending time. So I'll go through the next question. So the next question is more about not who are started to looking for the job. It's like a little bit earlier concern, like, so the question is from Steve Klein, and the question is like, how and at what point in your grad student or postdoc career did you start to synthesize your ideas into a proposal for a full research program? So I think it is something like that. We are doing a lot of projects, but like when we started to realize that I have to put everything into one stream, not here and there, something like that. So when is the good time to start thinking or synthesizing that idea?
I answered somebody in the Q&A about this. I think deciding when to, or some very similar question, deciding when to apply, I think it's just whether you want to be a group manager or whether you want to keep doing science by yourself as a postdoc. I think it's a matter of what you want to decide when to start applying. And I started developing or putting together all these ideas just 1 month before the first deadline of the first job that I thought it was interesting, and that's it. And I don't think it matters at what career stage you are. It's that you have to want it a lot and you're prepared to work hard on it.
I think it's a useful exercise to do this kind of things as early as possible, because it kind of helps you to figure out, do I really want to be a professor? And if you try and you fail year after year after year, maybe that's just, you know, maybe there are some other things that are also very much worth doing, that you would be much better spending your time. But I think the earlier you start and your application are going to get better, your ideas are going to get better, especially because then you can discuss it with your colleagues, with visiting scholars. I discussed my ideas with everyone who I met. At some point, people started avoiding me. You know, that's, yeah, I guess the earlier you can, the better.
Yeah, I also like the aspect of these questions. Like very early, I got this advice, like my PI was saying, no matter what you do, you just try to keep things in one track. Otherwise, at some point you'll get lost. So we'll just quickly ask the last questions for today's webinar. And the question is from George Ramos from Stanford. And the question is, how much does the serendipity play a role in navigating your careers?
A lot. Yeah. It's quite random.
Yes, yeah, I think it is, but you also have to like make your own luck. So be present at the conference, talk to everyone, because serendipity, be on Twitter, be visible.
Yes.
Yeah. I think like many grants and many fellowships and so on, there's a level, a threshold that you pass, and after that it is a little bit random depending on the long-term project prospects of a department or like individual interests, etc. So those things you cannot control, but you can control that you're going to write a great proposal and give a great talk and do a great interview. So that's it.
Great.
This is me. So I just want to mention that I did not ask that question. I don't want other people online to think that I'm looking for a job, because I love my job. Okay. I was only saying thank you to the whole panelists. I think just the moderator got the names confused. So really? Thank you all.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Probably someone else asked that question, so the name came wrong. Oh, sorry for that. I think we are right on the time, so we'll not extend it because I think everyone has different schedule also. So first, I'd like to thank our 4 speakers. They're so amazing, and they are in a different time zone. I should mention that. And still they made it, and they are vibrant. They give all of the advice. It was great. And then I'd like to thank all the participants. We can see right now we have like more than 50 participants. And just before going to end, I want to say that the Plant Postdocs is actually a very active conversation group for the people who are looking job in the academia and also in the industry. So here in the screen, you can see right now, you can scan and go to the Plant Postdocs website. And there you'll find our email, plantpostdoc@gmail.com. And you can just send us an email to get a request to join the Slack group. And just don't forget to mention us where you are right now as a postdoc. Just provide your CV or website or Twitter, something that we can identify and keep and record. And second thing is that if you are not a postdoc right now, but you want to keep on the track and want to view the Plant Postdoc Slack, so just follow us on Twitter. We have more than 1,000 followers and we post everything on the Twitter. And I also want to thank Sunil. He worked a lot to organize that. I was always with him. And also Jyoti, because we practiced a lot to make the webinar a smoother one. And last thing is that we are going to announce who are the 4 award winners for their participation very soon. And we will send you the $25 Amazon gift card. And last thing is that we started with this academic webinar, but the next webinar very soon, we're going to focus on the industry job. So those who are interested to listen for some of the people who transition their career from the PhD as a plant biologist, postdoc as a plant biologist to industry, just follow us on the Twitter or be active in the Slack. Yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for your time, for attending the webinar. I'm really glad that we made it. And this is the first one, but we'll keep doing these things. It was fun.
Right, thanks for organizing, and thanks, well, glad to meet you all.
Sure.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe.
Yeah, just stay home.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.